In this video, I'm going to explain how to put data on an Excel spreadsheet and then how to kind of clean up the data table a little bit and how to calculate some important calculations like average, mean, median, mode, standard deviation. We'll be doing this in class. So first off, I have here the middle school students and how many times they check social media at school. I've got 12 students. And then I have here upper school students. And notice when I click on these cells, I can see what's in that cell up here in this box. But notice because these cells are so narrow, it's kind of hard to see what's in them. Okay, so first thing I can just go up here to this column and I can drag it over and I can make it a little bigger. But notice middle school students is kind of a long title. So I can also go up here to wrap text, and if I click on that, I can make it like that. And maybe I want to make it a little bit wider. And same thing over here with upper school students. Notice it doesn't fit in that cell very well, so I can wrap the text so it fits in there, and I don't like the way that student S got in there, so I'm going to make it a little wider. Okay, so now I have middle school students, upper school students, and I've got all the data from those two students, or for those, 12 sets of students. Okay, the next thing I want to do on my data table is I want to there's no lines on here right now, I want to make it visible. So I'm going to highlight my whole data table, and then I'm going to come up here, and just like with all data tables, I want to put borders around all my cells. So I'm going to click on that, and now all my cells have borders. Okay. And I also want to put cell borders around these cells down here. And here I go, all borders. Okay, now what I want to know is, of my middle school and upper school students, what's the average number of times that a student checked social media, right? I've got some big numbers, I've got some small numbers, so I really need to try to figure out what my average values is. Okay, so to do a calculation, if I click on this box, I'm going to type in equals, and notice you can see up here, whatever I type in there is going to appear. So if I make a mistake, I can check up here and see what I typed in. Equals, and I'm going to take average, okay, and then parentheses, okay, and notice it's going to tell me the first number to the last number I want. Well, I'm just going to click and drag on all of my students because I have them all together in this column here. And I'm going to close parentheses on that. So you can see right here, equals average B3 to B14. That's going to give me the average of all those values. And if I hit enter, I have 8.25. Okay, so now I know what that average is. That was pretty easy to do. I didn't have to get my calculator out and do it by hand. I could just have Excel do it. I want to do the exact same thing with this column. Okay, now I could do exactly what I did there, but what I'm going to do is, see this little green box over here? If I just drag it over, it's going to do exactly the same calculation here with this data as it did here with this data. So if I just grab this little green box and I go over here, I've got this number. Now notice I've got all these digits in here, and these are probably not significant, right? I mean, I don't need to go to that many decimal points. So I can go up here to my round off, and I can kind of move this back, whoops, move it this way, to maybe 7.9, okay, and 8.3. So I can see there's a little difference there between my averages. On average, upper school students are checking social media fewer times during the school day. Okay, now, median, remember, median is the middle value. Okay, so I have, to do that, I'm going to put in equals, and again, you can see up here as I type in what's going to appear. Equals means I wanted to do a calculation, and I'm just type in median. And you can see, if I just click on this, it'll tell me what I need to do, and then I'm just going to highlight. I don't want to highlight my average because that's not one of my data points, right? I want to just highlight these, these 12 points here. Okay. And so my middle value of all 12 of these is 7, okay, for my middle school students. And then to do it for upper school, I just drag this over and I get 7.5. Now, how can a middle value be 7.5? I don't have a 7.5 here, right? Well, I have 12 values, right? So to calculate the median of an even number of values, it's going to take the average between
the one that's like number 6 and the one that's number 7. It's going to basically say, so my between 7 and 8 was where my median would be. Because it's an even number, I don't have one number there. I have that, but because I have two values at 7 over here, 7 is the median value. Okay, mode. Mode is the most common value in my data set, right? So I'm going to go equals mode, parentheses, and same thing. I don't want to hire my average or my median because those are not my data that I collected, right? Just the 12 students that I collected data from. And so the most common times a middle school student checked social media was 6, okay? And again, I can just grab that green square, drag over, and 7. So interestingly, my average is slightly less for upper school, but my mode, my most common value, is slightly greater. Now, count. This is going to tell me how many data points I have. How many did I collect? So I'm just going to equals count. Okay. And I just want to say, okay. And again, I don't want to use my average, my mean, or my median, just the data points there. Okay. And I say, and by the way, if you don't put that closed parentheses on, it'll put it on for you. So I've got 12 for middle schools, 12 students I collected data from, and I can drag that over. And I also have 12 for that. Now, another way I can do this, it's kind of nice if my numbers are my data is numbered, okay? So I can put a 1 over here, and I can put a 2, and I could keep typing 3, 4, 5, 6. But again, Excel's kind of smart. It knows it's got 1, 2. It says, ooh, I'll bet you're counting, and I'll bet you're counting one value at a time. So if I just drag this down, I can also easily number. And that's really nice when you have really large data sets. When you have like 50 or 100 points on there, you can just drag from 0 to 100 fairly quickly, and it'll number it. It would take a long time to do that manually. Okay, standard deviation. Now, this is something you're maybe not as familiar with as some of these other values. Standard deviation is the spread in your data. So in 8th grade physical science with Doc, you made a lot of histograms. Histograms show the spread in data. Okay, and the way we can calculate the or show the standard deviation, this is basically the value plus or minus from your mean value where 2/3 of the data will fall. So if you have a large standard deviation, that means your data is spread wider. You don't have as many data points close to the mean. If you have a really small standard deviation, your data is tight around that mean. So the way we're going to calculate that is, again, equals, and then ST for standard, DEV for deviation. Now notice there's a bunch of options it's given me. And we want to do a standard deviation for a sample because we have 12 individuals. We don't have the entire population, right? That would be really hard to get. But we have a sample, so I'm going to click on that one. STDEV period S, or I can just click on this and then highlight again my 12 middle schoolers and hit OK. And again, I've got this value. Again, I don't like all those numbers past the decimal point, so I want to kind of round off to maybe 3.2. And then for upper school, I'm just going to drag that little green box over, and I got 2.7. Okay, so now I've got my data, and let's say if I want to make this in bold, much like in a Word document, I can make that bold. If I want to make these bold, I can make that bold as well. And now I have a really nice data table. I can just copy this and paste it into a Word document on my lab, and everything's going to be easy to see. It's nicely organized. Maybe I want to take my data points and center them. I can just center them like that, but I've got really nice data there, and maybe I want to highlight what my averages are because I think that's important. Okay, so what you've done is you've created a nice data table here, and you've done some calculations, and using Excel, it can do them quickly and efficiently, and that's a nice looking data table. Go ahead and stop it.